Beyond and hello, everyone. My name is Jonathon Dornbush. I am joined by Max Scoville and Brian Altano.
Hey.
For a little bit of a beyond conversation, Barrett loves us when I say that every time. So I like to do it a lot. We're here today to talk about the PlayStation Classic. I got to go hands-on with it, played it for about 2.5 hours or so, messed around with the UI a bunch, played as many of the games as I could in that time window, but basically went hands-on with it a few, I guess, weeks out now before it releases, and mainly wanted to hear from you guys what questions you had about it.
Sure, we have a million of them.
Yes.
So I want to start with the sort of the hardware, right? Like
Yeah.
the actual form factor. How does the controller feel? How long's the cable? How does the system itself feel? Is it weighty? Like give me all that.
System is pretty light. So yeah, what my favorite thing was they had an original PlayStation on display and then next to the PS Classic, and like it is adorable. It is one of those sucker sort of things where like I was on the fence about whether or not I want one for the library necessarily, but seeing it in action, I'm like, I do really want that in my house. Like
it's about half the size. It's like 45%.
It's it's pretty small. It fits comfortably on top of basically like the disk drive area.
Oh wow!
Of it,
so it's a little cutie,
and then extends a little bit out from that. But yeah, the console itself is adorable. It has the 3 main buttons still on top. One is the power button. One is for resetting. So if you're in the middle of the game and want to do a suspend state, you just hit that, and that brings you back out to the main menu.
So it does have save states.
It has, like the NES and SNES Classic, it has suspend states. I think it only has one per game based on when I was playing. It essentially, I went into a game, suspend stated it, went back into the game, and was going to do another, and it asked me if I'd like to replace.
And it doesn't allow you to access those from a controller. You have to get up and actually touch the system.
You do have to hit the system,
okay.
Unless there was a button combination I didn't press.
How long was the controller cord? Because that's been a big
controller cord was, I believe the exact length is like 57.1 inches. It is comfortably long. It is several feet long. It is definitely longer than an NES Classic controller.
Just about 5 feet though?
Yeah, probably SNES Classic length.
Okay. What happens if you push the open button? Can you?
The open button, oh man, I'm forgetting what it does. You can do that. I think it resets the game you were playing.
I read on Resetera that there's chocolate inside. Is that true? Can you confirm or deny?
There is not.
Okay.
It's vanilla.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
just hard pieces of vanilla.
Gotta wait for the PS2 Classic for the chocolate.
Yes, exactly.
What was it like holding the controller? Does it feel like authentic? Does it feel hollow? Does it is it weird playing something without dual analog again?
Yes and no. So I definitely expected it to be weirder to hold than it was. It did feel pretty comfortable. Obviously, modern DualShocks and everything have a lot more ergonomic design to them. They're more comfortable to hold. The original PlayStation controller design definitely has harder edges and angles that as you're holding, I definitely noticed it and had to adjust my hands a little bit. But I played for about 2 hours straight, a bunch of different games, and it was never really an issue for it. It's definitely light. It's lighter than a normal DualShock right now is, but it wasn't like the flimsiest thing. It felt comfortably made for sure.
Tell us about the UI a little bit.
Yeah, so when you jump into the system, this was one of the more disappointing things for me, I think, about playing it was the UI is pretty bare bones. You open it up, and there is a wheel of 20 games that you can just spin around, basically, and that is the UI.
Okay.
So it's there. Basically, it's the box art for each game is there in front of you, and so you can spin through it. It's alphabetically listed. It has the, I think, publisher and the year it was released, and then you can go in. There's like a main settings mode for the PlayStation Classic, and then also you can save obviously in a lot of these games. So there is like a memory card little icon, and it saves like a cute little pixel image inside it, and you can access actual save states from games in it. It has that. It has the settings. You can jump in. It has like general console guide information of what the buttons and what everything does on it there. But in terms of the actual instructions per game, you need to scan a QR code on the screen that will then take you to the control. So it's not.
That's kind of frustrating.
A little bit odd.
It's not the same as like NES Classic had like virtual PDFs that you could flip.
Yeah,
through.
like full manual scans.
Yeah, like that sort of fun thing. So it doesn't really have that in it, and there's no necessarily at least when I was playing, I couldn't find anything of the sorts of different borders you can put on the screen or different
I was going to ask you
backgrounds
about
and
that.
things. It's pretty much the settings were
Screensavers, attract mode, or
there is
anything?
screensaver, which it will do that after playing if you stop playing for an hour. Or
What about
that's about it.
adjusting screen size? Is there any because obviously these games are going to look a little bit different on HD TV.
They all pretty much went to a 4:3.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any? And there are no borders or anything?
No, it was just black.
No
on the
filter
sides.
options like
No, not that I
dithering
saw
or
there. Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, nothing of that sort. It pretty much was, here are the games as they are.
Okay. Okay.
So how do they look? Like how does something like Metal Gear look like with it's like rough polygonal edges?
They hold up to varying states of degree. I would say a lot of the 2D stuff, Mr. Driller, Rayman, still looks really great.
Yep.
There's less going on there, so it is able to just comfortably be that beautiful art they created back in the day. The polygonal stuff does definitely show its age. It was funny jumping into either Metal Gear or Final Fantasy VII specifically and seeing like, oh yeah, here's the weird blocky cloud with like the angled edges to him showing his body versus legs.
Right.
So you do notice it. It didn't really bother me. It wasn't like, oh, this is awful, I can't look at it. It is one of those things where though, like, you admire this was a technical marvel at its time sort of thing, but not in the way that you play Super Mario World on the SNES Classic and you're like, oh, this is still beautiful today. It's very much like, oh yeah, this is a product of its time. But that said, like, I played Final Fantasy VII and started playing for like a half hour. I was like, I should try out some of the other games. So like, there is that bit of playing some of these. Oh yeah, there is nostalgia for definitely some of these games on there. The list itself, seeing it in front of me was definitely varying though in that case.
What game like most surprised you in terms of how it held up, and what game was the most disappointing to jump into in 2018?
Most disappointing, at least of what I played. I tried to play as many as I could. I didn't get to all 20, but I got to, I think, probably 10 to 12 or so. Probably most disappointing in terms of I just probably won't ever touch it was the original Rainbow Six. So I booted it up. I'd never played it before. And the controls are so obtuse because obviously you're not using dual analog or anything. And it's like a varying amount of movement and camera and the shooting are all on the triggers and the buttons. And so you're trying to figure out how to look around properly. And obviously it's not just a perfect analog stick sort of movement. And so it was just so obtuse and confusing. And I died instantly with like the first
that
three
game
characters.
is unforgiving.
And I was like, okay, I understand. I don't want to play this right now. Like with the modern options of games I have available to me, I'm like, I'm not going to spend the time learning this game.
That one seemed like such a weird pick from the jump. Like it's not really even something I sort of conditioned in my brain as like a PlayStation classic.
Sure. Yeah. And I do think that speaks to the issue of like seeing it there in front of me. There are classics missing. Like it's that unabashed thing. Like I restarted Metal Gear and it was fun to play. And it was like, oh, I would play this again. Like if it wasn't the crazy fall season and I was playing the PlayStation Classic in like January before anything starts coming out, I'll play Metal Gear for a week or I'll play Final Fantasy VII for a week. Like I did feel that impulse definitely for a few of these games. Puzzle Fighter Turbo was fun to jump back into. Rayman was fun to jump into. So there are definitely a solid handful of games that are fun still to play.
Right.
But there are also, when you jump into some of them, it's like, oh, this is definitely of its time. And I don't know if I would give the time to it. And seeing especially like when you see all of them in front of you, Crash not being there, Spyro not being there, all those being gone, it just feels like it's missing something.
Right.
It sounds a little bit disappointing, but I mean, it still has Puzzle Fighter and Metal Gear, so I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, it's that thing of like there are 2 or 3 on there that I really do want to play again and play in that style of playing with an old PlayStation controller, and so I probably will still buy one. I don't think it fully justifies its price tag and everything, but it was fun to play. It was fun to jump back into that nostalgia moment for sure.
And that's $100 out December 3rd?
December 3rd, yeah. It'll be out then, $100. You can pre-order it now. We have a bunch of varying. It's going on and off sale. I have full thoughts and impressions on IGN.com, so you can read those. And, of course, we'll be talking about it as it comes out on Beyond, which is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific at beyond.ign.com. And with that, thank you guys so much for joining me. And
Thank you.
Beyond.
Beyond.